I will hand it over to Dr. Dotson.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you. I wanted to just provide a few updates. I know it's been just about 2 weeks since we saw each other in a YuZoom, so I am hopeful that I'll be able to be focused. First, I just want to thank everyone who has participated in the FCMAT process for us to provide some feedback to the DC3 working group. We had individuals join us in person, if you will, via Zoom for a conversation about FCMAT. We had individuals participate in a survey, and I've also had individuals reach out via email with some inputs and thoughts. And I appreciate all of you for leaning into that and making sure that Yuba's voice is heard in that process. This now does transition to the district's work through a DC3 sub working group that is identifying a strategic plan for how we are going to respond to FCMAT's recommendation and reallocate resources within the district to support us to be more sustainable moving forward. And it was important that we started that by making sure that Yuba College's perspective and voice was heard, and you all did that. So thank you very much for your contributions in both surveys, which I should have mentioned. I wanted to give you just a quick update, kind of from my perspective, some decisions that I have made or am going to make here shortly. The start of the spring semester was a bit hectic. I think that we did our very best to try and start a semester with all of our students and do it in a scenario where we had some new expectations around our COVID, the district's COVID proof or test policy. That was certainly a challenge for everyone to get used to some of those expectations. And there's a little bit of that is evolving as we are implementing that and realizing what does and doesn't work. But it also has highlighted that COVID and its impacts on our work continue. They are still there. And we still need to identify ways that we can continue to deliver great student education, great student learning, and make space for some of these things that are causing us a bit of challenges. I actually asked this question right after I started and went through a process to try and collaboratively identify some ways that we could put things on pause so that we could, really focus and buckle down with COVID. This time I'm not doing as much asking. I'm just identifying ways that we can try and put some things on pause in order to make room and space for us to move through these continued COVID times. So to that end, I think you all saw an email about putting a pause on the full program review. I want to be clear that program review is incredibly important. It's the way that we identify opportunities to invest or to bolster our programs. We have been using that in the last year and a half that I have been here, as we've identified investments we need to make, for example, in our facilities. But it is a lot of work for a lot of people, the faculty and the staff and administrators that support that work. And so we are going to put a pause on the full program review. In addition, we're going to work with our EMP contractor to see if we can lengthen the planning process for our education master plan. This is the college's strategic plan that says, here are the initiatives and things that we expect to do in the next 3 years to increase student success. And we're going to try and elongate the planning process so that we can make sure we are doing that EMP at a time when people have the space and the focus and the ability to contribute to that meaningfully. So I wanted to share that with you all today. In addition, I wanted to share that the College Council did recommend a classroom renovation list. If you've come to these YuZoom meetings over the last couple of years, you'll know that we had done some work to try and fix the roofs of our buildings and then transitioned to the walls and the sides of our buildings. We did a repair process and then are in progress with painting. And now we are transitioning to try and do some remodel work in the places where students learn and teachers teach and employees work, the places where we do things to create a campus environment that is attractive and meaningful and a great place to learn for everybody that's here. That classroom renovation list did did get recommended to move forward. And so we will now work with M&O to use that prioritized list to try and put our funds together and work through those remodel projects. So please do look for an opportunity to provide input if you work in those spaces in the coming year or two. I wanted to make sure everybody has on their calendar that the Yuba Excellence Awards, we are going to try to have a in-person banquet, if you will, likely outside. And we're going to try and get back to recognizing some of our employees. We did send out the invitation to nominate for our Excellence Awards for faculty, part-time faculty, and classified staff. We'll have a Yuba Spirit Award as well. We'll recognize likely some of our retirees and our service anniversaries also. So please do mark your calendar for May 6th at 3 o'clock. There was an Outlook invitation that went out, but as email addresses come in and out of the system, sometimes we meet you. So let's be sure that that you mark your calendar for that time. I also wanted to let you know that Chancellor Hoopus has engaged with a group of individuals at Yuba College to put together a comprehensive professional development proposal. That group of individuals are the folks who contribute to professional development across all of the employees at our institution, from faculty to classified administrators, our PD committee, et cetera. And they're working to conceptualize a proposal to meet Chancellor Hoopus's hopes to invest in an ongoing sustainable budget for professional development. That work has just barely started. I think we're holding our first official meeting next week to talk a little bit about what we might do moving forward. It's born largely out of the Guided Pathways initiative that came up with a teaching and learning center concept and recognized that really what they needed to do the best possible job was a more sustainable investment. And so I look forward to seeing the work that we are able to do and to come up with a proposal and see the district invest in those opportunities. Next slide. It's also my privilege today to do our YCProud spotlight. The district has put their town halls on hold, and I really enjoy this opportunity to recognize employees for their contributions. And so I'd like to keep that up. And today I want to take some time to recognize Robert Stoddard. Robert is an adjunct faculty member in our fire technology program. And you can see here a list of accomplishments that his supervisor, Brian Bazuzzi, has identified as ways that he has been innovative, has made a difference for his students, has created new opportunities like the Wildland Fire Academy for students and for the industry in our area to meet those needs. Robert is clearly a very talented individual who has made a difference. I've had a chance to meet him a few times on tours and see him out back in action with his students, and we are incredibly grateful to him for the work that he does every day. Robert, thanks so much for keeping us YC proud. And with that, I will turn it over to Jeremy Brown, and I will try and pay attention to the questions in the chat too.
Crystal Fair will help us introduce the cultural heritage calendar for this month.
Thank you. So this month is going to be Black History Month. The cultural heritage calendar is outlined and can be found on board docs as well as on the Yuba College website under our equity tab. We're really excited to bring you a couple of different activities this month, including February 15th, a movie screening. The movie will be I Am Not Your Negro, which is an amazing movie. It is available on Canopy. It won't be able to be advertised through or shown through Zoom because of licensing concerns with Canopy. However, if you reach out to the library through the library services page, there's a really great kind of walkthrough on how students can access that independently as well. It will be hosted in the Identity and Engagement Center on the 15th. In addition to that, February 24th, we are hosting the Zuzu Acrobats. They are a Tanzanian acrobatic group. We're super excited to have them visit us. They're actually in the area. They will be performing at the Kings game later on that evening. So this is a really great opportunity to see a phenomenal group perform. The next month will be Women's Heritage Month, and we'll have information for that in March. Next up, I think I'm passing it to Jeremy, Interim Vice President of Instruction.
Thank you, Crystal. So I wanted to provide first an update on the work that's happening in our governance work group. Christoph is here also to kind of jump in if he has anything to add. But our work group has been meeting over the past semester with our coach, Al Solano, as well as gathering feedback from co-chairs, members from our different committees. And so we have identified an initial draft of a restructure. That draft is going through College Council, the different groups that will be impacted, as well as Academic Senate. Some things that we've identified up front is some key terms. So first, talking about how there's a difference in our groups between representational, those where we want to ensure that we have college stakeholders from each of our different constituencies having a voice in college planning and decision making. And then we have groups that are operational. So those are more work group oriented, task focused, kind of working towards a specific outcome. Committees we've identified as being more representational, and work groups are more operational. These terms are going to be important as we look at the proposed structure, which is on the next page. So I'm going to share this with you. There has been some discussion specifically about the Flex work group. And so I know that Christoph is working with the Flex work group to identify whether that should really be a work group of the Academic Senate. So I know those conversations are still moving forward. But the rest of this is a proposal that has been reviewed by College Council. It's been shared with Academic Senate. It's being brought around to the different committees. And it is a recommendation on how we could streamline some of our governance. Currently, we have, I believe, 15 official committees and work groups in our handbook for governance for College Council. And this would really bring us to five core representational committees reporting up through College Council. And then Academic Senate having Curriculum Committee and Distance Education Committee, which is their current structure. This is still a beginning discussion. We're trying to get some feedback. College Council was provided draft purpose statements that are now out with the different committees to review and provide feedback on. So the structure is that College Council would have a strategic enrollment management work group to advise on our strategic enrollment management efforts, and to kind of identify specific practices and policies that would be put into place. The Budget and Grant Development Committee would really be looking at the entire picture of budget, resource, human resources, grant development at the college to make recommendations. Institutional Effectiveness Committee merges the ideas of SEAC and program review, with our outcomes becoming a work group of that group. Guided Pathways Redesign and LEAD would continue on as committees, although there has been some discussion about over time merging those two, because their work is definitely related. And then the Professional Development Committee currently in the structure would have Flex as a work group, but again, I mentioned that there's some discussion about whether that should really be a work group of Academic Senate. Christoph, I don't know if you or anyone else who's on our work group would like to add anything to this discussion.
I think you covered it perfectly.
Thank you. So if you have feedback about this, please reach out to one of us, or attend one of the committees where this is going to be discussed. I believe, Christoph, it will go back to Academic Senate for that discussion about Flex specifically. So if you have feedback about any of this, please feel free to reach out. Next up will be instruction updates. So I wanted to share a staffing update. First, we have the sad news that Dean Wafa-Hosen will not be returning. She has submitted her letter of resignation and is taking time to get better. She had some health issues that have made it so that she's unable to return. So we have Walter Masuda here to help the division during this transition period. We will be searching for an interim appointment and opening the recruitment for a permanent position to fill that dean role once again. That is all starting back up right now. Additionally, you may have noticed that our Dean of CTE and Workforce Development, new title, but similar, same position. Our wonderful Dean, Pete Villarreal, is retiring at the end of this year. And so we will be searching for his replacement. Not easy to replace Pete, but we will be conducting that search this semester as well. And then section modality, I wanted to provide an update that we wound up with 513 sections. Currently, we have 41 late start, and I can late start anything after March or anything starting in March, because we do have some that are starting in February. Deans are still looking and working with faculty to identify if there are other areas that we need to do additional late starts. But currently we're at 47% face-to-face, 43% online that is asynchronous, 6% at hybrid, 4% at synchronous online. I also wanted to present an update on finals week. So as you all are aware, there is not a finals week schedule in our spring 2022 schedule that's been published. Because we did not have a final schedule when the semester started, we are not planning to implement a specific final schedule for this semester. The guidance, after working with College Council to discuss next steps, the guidance will be that that is a traditional week. So you would meet as normal during that week. For those finals that may need additional time beyond their normal schedule on a day, the recommendation would be, if it works, to split that across your 2 meeting sessions if you have to. If not, then please work with your dean or director to identify how to schedule and make that work. I do want to let you all know that starting with the fall 2022 schedule, we will have the final schedule printed in the document from now on out. And yes, Georgie, I see that you need that in writing. That will be sent out by email. I just was sharing it here first. So next up, I'm going to introduce Brian Vasuzzi to provide us with a public safety department spotlight.
Thank you, Jeremy. The academies in the public safety department are doing well. We've expanded in some areas. Chief Stoddard, that we spoke about earlier, has done a great job with our basic wildland academies, very, very popular still. And we're looking at doing a little bit more in the work of offering in-service classes to working professionals. And so we're doing our first academy for field training officers. And then in the fall, we'll be doing a 24-hour update for people who have been field training officers. So we're kind of getting into the area of advanced officer training, and we're pretty excited about that. We've also done a little bit of outreach to our sheriffs, and have been talking to them about the possibility of possibly bringing some online classes to the incarcerated population, and they were actually really excited about that, and maybe kind of a long-term project, but we're exploring the idea of if that's a possibility for Yuba College to do in the future. And that is our update, and I'll turn it over to Chris Sanchez.
Thank you, Brian. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the academic standing report for the fall 2021. So first of all, a shout out to Irma Guzman and Alejandra Barnes for compiling all of these reports. Secondly, a shout out to all the faculty and classified staff for helping our students in the 2021 fall semester. So you can see that we had 16% of our students were on the honors list. That equates to about 661 students. And these students are recognized for having a 3.0 with 12 or more units, graded units. So that's kind of exciting. We had 76% of our students, which is about 3,766 students that are in good standing. So these are students who at least had 12 semester units, and they earned a cumulative GPA of a 2.0 to a 2.9. So both the honors list and the good standing are noted on their transcripts. I forgot to mention that for the honors list, students were mailed a letter to their home informing them of that status. So we're on to level 1 probation. That's 6% of our students, which was about 291 students. These are students who failed to maintain a cumulative grade point average of a 2.0 or higher. So these students were sent an email. These students will be called by the different categorical programs and counseling to call these students to come to an academic success workshop so that we can help them so that they can get off probation. We have level 2 probation status, 4%, 178 students. And those are students that fail to have an overall cumulative GPA of a 2.0 in 2 consecutive semesters. And lastly, I'm very happy to say only 1%, which is only 52 students that were dismissed because they had less than a 2.0 in 3 consecutive semesters. So I just wanted to mention that any student that's in level 1, level 2, or dismissed, if they have extenuating circumstances, the student can petition for us to review their data through the Vice President's Office of Student Services and potentially alleviate that. For students that are dismissed and don't wish to petition, they will sit out an entire semester and then will need to come back and meet with a counselor to come up with a success contract to help them as they continue their education here at Yuba College. And I'll turn over the time to Marcy.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm going to use a little time today to share some thoughts about invisible disabilities, mental and physical disabilities that aren't outwardly apparent. You're looking at a list of examples here that cover a broad range from learning disabilities to disorders like autism, to mental health disabilities like depression, anxiety, and PTSD, to illnesses like fibromyalgia, arthritis, migraines, gastrointestinal disorders, to diseases like AIDS, Lyme disease, and cancer. People with indivisible disabilities fight a daily battle that others can't see. They may be struggling with pain and fatigue. They may be unable to grasp concepts or ideas that others around them seem to be easily understanding. They may be fearful that they're not safe in the classroom, fearful about a medical procedure they're facing. The possible scenarios for struggle are endless. People with indivisible disabilities may have grown up trying to pass under the radar, so to speak, not disclosing their disabilities, and many may not seek accessibility assistance. Some may not even know that accessibility services extend to those with the conditions that they have. Other individuals may come from cultures where disability is highly stigmatized, and they may fear being shamed for seeking accommodations. According to Insight into Diversity, the oldest and largest diversity magazine and website in higher ed today, invisible disabilities are prevalent on college campuses, affecting students, staff, faculty, and administrators at all levels of our institutions. In the past, there seems to have been a notion that campus constituents would be better off if they didn't divulge their disability information. But thankfully, that viewpoint is gradually changing, and our institutions are increasingly viewing neurodiversity and other differences as assets rather than impairments. Higher ed leaders are being encouraged to learn how to help individuals overcome the challenges they face by cultivating a supportive campus climate and replacing the deficit model of disability with initiatives that frame disability as a form of diversity like any other. As we do this, we shift the perception of disability from a negative stereotype to a positive interpretation that focuses on strengths. For example, many individuals with ADHD or dyslexia display tendencies towards spontaneity, creativity, and visual spatial abilities. Those on the autism spectrum demonstrate a strong capacity for systematic thinking, attention to detail, and perseverance. As we find ways on our campuses for individuals to utilize these strengths, we contribute to changing their narrative from struggle to success. When a student has a disability that's visible and they use a wheelchair or a white cane or a seeing eye dog, or their disability is obvious to others in some other way, there's usually no resistance at all to the implementation of services and accommodation. That's often not the case for students whose disabilities aren't visible. On top of the other battles they face, these students frequently find themselves having to fight for their accommodation needs because they don't look disabled or seem disabled. They find that even though they've provided documentation that verifies their needs to accessibility offices, they still have to justify their request to others. According to a 2021 study by the National Center for College Students with Disabilities, students with disabilities are more likely than their peers to encounter discrimination, and they have an overall lower sense of belonging on campus. That organization encourages campuses to cultivate empathetic, curious attitudes toward neurodiverse community members. The attitudes of others can sometimes be the biggest barrier that people with disabilities face, and will be well served by working from this framework of curiosity rather than judgment about why students may be behaving a certain way. DSPS is grateful that our campus provides a platform for this conversation, and we look forward to continuing our work together with you toward this goal. And I thank you for your time, and now I'll turn this back over to Jeremy.
Thank you, Marcy. So I wanted to provide a welcome to our new MESA director, Liliana Becerra. She comes to us from the E-Center Head Start organization, and she started with us on Monday. Liliana, I don't know if you want to say hello or say anything. I will be sending out an email with some information about Liliana so that you have her contact information, but you want to say anything?
Sure, I'm just excited to be here, and I'm excited to work with every single one of you and hopefully get to see the MESA program to its fullest potential. So I'm very excited, and I'll be saying hello to whenever I see people on campus.
Thank you, Liliana, and welcome. And then I need to hand it over to Crystal Fair. Before I do, there's an update that I did not include on this slide, which is that we will be moving forward very soon with a partner to bring food services back to our college campus that will also be supporting our Sutter County Center. We're working through the logistics of that. But for that agreement, I have one person to thank for pushing that forward, and that is Crystal Fair. As I hand it over to her for her to give an update on professional development, I do also want to recognize that Crystal Fair has accepted an exciting opportunity to take on a mentorship opportunity with the CSEA at the statewide level, for which she will have a reassigned time or release time from here at Yuba College, starting next week through the end of May. So she will not be working with us here, but we are very happy for her and look forward to having her back at the college when she returns in June. So Crystal, if you want to share the information about professional development, and congratulations.
Thank you. For professional development, first, I want to say thank you so much to all of the individuals that participated and attended sessions. We had over 550 participants. This included both in-person and online Zoom opportunities. It was really a fantastic turnout. Also, exceptional thank you to all of the presenters. We presented 32 separate sessions. This came district-wide, 550 participants, included attendees from Lake, Woodland, and the district office. We were really excited to see that, and it was because of the amazing presentations that were offered by all of you that stepped up into that. This was one of the first sessions that we offered drop-in sessions for HR and IT as well. We would love feedback. I know that a survey has been sent to everybody's email regarding the sessions that were attended. If you can fill that out, it helps give us insight into how best we can shape the presentations excuse me, the next time, whether drop-in is correct or if we need to move to a different style. We are beginning our planning for summer and convocation for professional development. We'll start within our meeting this week has been canceled, but in 2 weeks we'll pick back up. And we're looking for people to present. There's a lot of different opportunities if you are interested in stepping up and helping out with that, or if you are aware of an individual that we may be able to bring on to our campuses for that, please feel free to reach out to the Professional Development Committee. And thank you so much. I am going to pass it on to Stephanie Bone, Instructional Assistant at the Sutter County Center.
Hello, everyone. So tutoring has started at all the centers, College Success Center, Sutter Center, as well as the WLDC, both online as well as in person. So on the slide, you should see the Zoom ID. However, if you refer your students to the Yuba College tutoring webpage, which is the link is right there, students will find the request form which they can fill out and request tutoring for scheduled tutoring, or as well as the link to the Zoom. And I'd like to pass it on to Christoph Nofsinger.
Good afternoon. We can go to the next slide. So I just have a couple of things to update everyone on. So the first is a reminder that the Senate meets on Zoom at noon on Thursdays. One of the things that's coming up next week, we're going to have a discussion on some proposed changes to the DE handbook. One of the changes that we'll be considering is to the training requirement for teaching DE courses. That will require all faculty to provide verification of training, including faculty who have already completed the course validation process. We will be discussing this next week. Please reach out to anyone on the Senate if you have any feedback to share and or attend the Senate meeting next week to engage in the discussion. And next slide. So I also wanted to just bring forward some of the upcoming virtual events at the state level for the Academic Senate. So there's the Part-Time Faculty Institute that's happening February 10th and 11th with a registration deadline coming up on the 8th. And it does have complimentary registration. And if you want more information, definitely reach out to me and I can give you some more information on that. And then there's also the Accreditation Institute coming up at the end of February. And we do have some funding available to send faculty to the virtual event. So just let me know if you want to go and we'll get you set up to attend. And that's all that I have. And I believe if somebody's here from M&O, we'll have an M&O update. And if not, I think it goes to the bookstore. And if we don't have anyone from the bookstore, I think it goes back to Jeremy.
No, I'm here from the bookstore.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, well, I'd like to introduce myself. I wasn't able to make the last meeting. My name is David Medina. New to this business, and we just completed our first rush week, my first ever. So I think it was a success. We did have a few hiccups, but that's to be expected. One thing that I would like to share with everyone is that this is a partnership that we have with the educators of this this school, and it takes effort on both sides in order to make every semester a success and every school year a success. So we do have some opportunities with communication. We are still seeing a lot of students come in and they're giving us information from a syllabus and it's required material from the instructor, which we have no idea about. So we're getting this information for the first time, which means now we have to adopt this into each course and order these books, and shipping can be 2 to 3 weeks. Now there are going to be some instances where somebody gets a class and it's last minute and we will expedite the shipping, but you know, when we have to expedite, it costs money, and most of the time it costs more than the books themselves. So I'm expected to run a profitable business for the company that I represent, and it's going to take the effort and proper planning on both sides. If I have the information, I can do something with it, and if we have it in a timely manner, we can get the books here for the student. And I think the big picture here is we have to give the students an opportunity to succeed, and it takes the effort from both sides. So when we start seeing those emails come through that, you know, if you can send us all the information, the ISBNs, as much information as you can, we can get all these books ordered on time. For me, it'd be nice if first day of school, we're not struggling to get books up on the shelves. And we used up a lot of our labor doing that this semester simply because we just didn't have the information. I only know what the faculty tells us, and otherwise, you know, we had a lot of labor waiting on UPS. We had 40-something cases coming in a day. A lot of the students are waiting on course materials that we just don't have and waiting on. So perfect world, I order these books a month in advance, and you know, 10 days prior to the first day of school, we have everything shelved and we're just waiting on a few things. And that way, when the students come in, it's a better experience for them. So, you know, we are in a partnership with the college, and, you know, a portion of our sales go to them. So when our sales are affected, you know, the school's income gets affected as well. So what I'm asking for here is if you would like us to enter in all the information, email it to our emails, to the assistant manager email or to the manager email. We will do all the legwork for you. We would be more than happy to do everything for you so that come time for the first day of school, it's the best possible experience for the student. And again, that's the big picture is the students. We have to set them up for success, but it takes the execution on both ends in order to make that happen. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So that brings us to question and answer. We do have some time. So if anyone has a question, you can feel free to unmute. And if not.
Hey, Jeremy, I guess I'll ask. I know that we're getting ready to go into finalizing the fall schedule, and I believe you either had or have a meeting with the deans. I'm wondering, are we recommending relatively radical changes to the number of online versus face-to-face classes? What is that going to be individually decided between the department and the dean, or what guidance is going to come down from above?
So I did have a meeting, actually, the deans and I met about an hour ago and had a conversation about this. They will be working with you. We are not recommending radical changes to the face-to-face versus DE based on what was scheduled for summer and fall originally. As you work with your dean to review, that was why we sent it back out based on any changes that came up this semester. But we are still recommending, based on information that we have to date, that we need to continue to offer face-to-face options.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we go fully online, but I'm wondering, so we in English canceled a lot of face-to-face classes and had to add a couple. And it's possible that we lost a bunch of students who didn't have any online classes to sign up for and just went somewhere else, though of course we have no way to know that. So is there not concern that that would happen again in fall, or are we going ahead with the assumptions that we had earlier? Or is that again an individual discussion with the dean?
I do encourage you to work with your dean, which right now, interim dean Walter Masuda on that. I will say that one conversation I've been having that Christy and I are working with Sonia Horn on is building out online sections that are available to be opened much more quickly than our traditional process allows, so that we have them on hold just in case we get to a point where we have something fill up, and so we can open it much more quickly. We will be looking to build that out for English and statistics, definitely. Although the deans will be working with each of you to identify if there are other sections that we need to plan for in that way.
And the deans have an idea about how to handle scheduling part-time faculty with seniority, return rights, and all that under such a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
And I noticed, David Willis, when I stopped sharing screen, I saw that you were here. Do you have any updates from M&O?
Well, not really. I just wanted to give kudos to Brian Epp, as he's covering for both colleges the last week, and he's traveling back and forth and doing the best he can to meet your needs. Certainly, I'm sure he's covering things there, but he's working extra hard for you, and so I just want to reach out and give him kudos. And unfortunately, he couldn't make it today because he's probably traveling and back and forth from Woodland and other locations to try to cover things in the district. So at this point, we have some project work coming up this spring. It'll be an exciting year for the district. We are planning to include new monument sign out in front of the campus, which would just be really great. It's going to have a really vivid two-way panel along North Beale. And I want to thank President Dotson for her support to make these improvements at the campus. So we've got some landscape improvement projects coming up too. And so we're going to be beautifying the campus this year, and it'll really transform by the end of the summer. So, and I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? I see one get in for Lisa. So no, Lisa, that is not our plan at this point.
Hey, Jeremy, is there a way to know, I mean, this may be an unknowable question, but is there a way to know if we lost students who came to apply or register for an online class, but they were all full, didn't want another class? Is there anything that monitors beginnings of applications or not applications, but of registration or anything like that? Or is that just, we fear that that happened, or we don't based on what we believe about the situation? I mean, is there any information that helps with that question?
So I would say that that's always a hard question to answer. We have a lot of anecdotal information. Someone may have heard that a student wasn't able to enroll in a class because there weren't online offerings. We've also heard anecdotally that someone wasn't able to enroll because there weren't enough face-to-face offerings in a certain area. So I don't think that we have a definitive answer on that. We have in the past looked at doing surveys, but once you do a survey with a student who's not here, response rates are abysmal. We've talked about doing focus groups or interviews or something like that to get better information. We've gotten some research back from limited response rate, again, from Hanover working with us on leavers, students who didn't return to see what was it. but that wasn't specifically focused on this pandemic times concern. So unfortunately, no, we don't have that information in a way where we can easily say we lost this number of students because we didn't have enough sections.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Hey, I guess I'm gonna say maybe what I don't want to put words into Greg's mouth, but maybe what Greg is getting at. It really seems like the students are voting with their enrollment in online. And I don't hear a plan necessarily to capitalize on that. So are we doing that, or are we trying to get back to what used to be? And if we are, is that really the way to go? Because I'm not sure, at least anecdotally from what I'm hearing from my students and my son and other students in college, a lot of them are not interested in coming back and sitting in a classroom. So are we having some kind of discussions? Do we have a plan at this point to pivot to a different way of presenting offerings?
Yeah, so Lisa, I would say, Tony, I don't know, you unmuted. I don't know if you want to share something.
Well, I was just going to say that I think one of the challenges of trying to make a permanent decision about this is that we're still in a very temporary scenario. I think that a big part of what impacted some of our registration is not only what was happening with COVID, but the spike of Omicron, right? Which technically did start in California in December. And I think that that in some ways impacts students' decisions as well. I will also share with you that I did spend this weekend in Sacramento with hearing from some of our legislators. And there is an expectation that there's likely to be some sort of bill or language that's going to require community colleges and some of the UCs and CSUs to have a certain percentage of their courses offered in face-to-face. There was some frustration expressed by the legislature about the fact that so many institutions stayed almost exclusively or exclusively online. We did, of course, share right back with them that, we create a schedule and it does adjust based off of where students are enrolling. And my understanding of how the schedule is being managed is that in instances where online courses are filling more quickly or fill all the way, we do add more sections where we can and try and transition in that direction to capitalize or meet student demand in that sense. I do think there are discussions going on about how we can continue to support a higher level of online offerings. Certainly pre-pandemic for us at Yuba, we had a much lower number of courses that were offered online, and we are looking at how we can memorialize that or support that long term. I think the Senate's talking with the DE committee about what that looks like and what the training is and how that happens. I don't know that that we're ready yet to make a permanent decision, but we are still trying to sort of ebb and flow and adjust as students make those decisions right now that I really do still feel like aren't necessarily permanent.
I think the only thing that I would add is that we definitely, as Lisa, you pointed out, we have students who are showing their preference for online by enrolling in those courses. I think what we're also possibly seeing is that we have students who are showing their preference for not online courses by not coming back in any way, shape, or form. And so until we have demonstrated that we are going to be sticking through with a face-to-face course, that we're going to have that option, that we aren't going to do what other colleges have done, which is to go online for the first 2 weeks of the semester, that we're maintaining those face-to-face opportunities, I think some of those students aren't going to come back.
Yeah, Jeremy, I understand that, but do you have how many face-to-face offerings were canceled for low enrollment this semester, and how many were let go with low? And I know in English we had several that, because of graduation requirements and so on, we kept them open. But to say that those, it seems like a smaller amount of students are voting to take the classes as well, perhaps, as staying home. And I guess the last thing I want to say, and then I'll shut up, with our transition of deans, it's going to be really important that these things be monitored much more closely. In English, we filled all the classes and added none for a very long time. And that's, I guess, where my concern is. Maybe we should have more at the beginning anyway. But I just want to make sure that we recognize that, especially in a situation where we have turnover, absences, new deans, and of course we're going to have a new dean again, right? It's really important that we figure out a way to make sure that those questions are asked early, because like you said, we're trying to monitor the things and open new classes. We didn't do that in English, not much anyway, right? So anyway, I'll stop venting now. Sorry.
Any other questions? Okay, well, if not, then thank you all. Oh, Susanna?
Actually, it's I'm sorry, I may say this incorrectly. Inderjeet had a question in the chat, and that was actually what I was going to ask too. So.
So my question was, is it possible for the face-to-face classes where, say, a student does have to isolate because they were in close contact or maybe they tested positive, where they do have that option of Zooming during that time? I know some of the high schools are doing that, where the students, if they're missing the class due to that, they're still able to still stay on top of it. Because that might be a way to also fill those face-to-face classes, because some people are just scared still. And so that might be the reason why, and maybe they're not able to manage, online courses, because it doesn't work for everybody. Some students can handle either way. So I didn't know if that's something that might be a possibility to consider. Then there aren't as many classes getting canceled because the student knows that they have that option.
So I believe that, thank you for the question, Inderjeet. I believe that that's what's called high flex instruction. It is something that is an option. I know that it's happened in a couple of instances, but that would have to be built that way from the beginning. If it's not built that way from the beginning, it would be a discussion with the individual faculty member at that point.
I will just add, Inderjeet, I think your question in the chat was focused more on when a student is either a close contact or test positive for COVID. And I think that's a little bit more complicated question, because the real answer is it depends on which class they are in. There are some classes where that's not an option because they're required to have positive attendance, be in person for a certain number of hours. But I've also seen in instances where that's not a requirement. We have a number of faculty members who have, for example, recorded their lectures or allowed that opportunity for a very short-term scenario, so the students can at least see that material after the fact. But I think that question to the specific around the 10-day part, which is in there, I think we have seen faculty try and kind of go above and beyond to help the students not to miss anything in those scenarios.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.